You want to know the greatest weakness of an avoidant man? What makes him feel powerful is exactly what destroys his relationships. He's got this one trait that he thinks makes him superior, stronger, smarter, more evolved than everyone else. He wears it like a badge of honor. But here's the brutal truth. This exact thing he's so proud of is what ruins every meaningful connection he could have. It's why his relationships fail, why he ends up alone, and why he can't figure out what keeps going wrong. The worst part? He doubles down on it every time something goes wrong, convinced he's protecting himself. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what this weakness is and why it's so destructive. So what is this trait that makes him feel so superior? What convinces him he's stronger and smarter than everyone else? It's his ability to care less, to need less, to be the one who's always less invested in the relationship. He sees this emotional distance as his greatest asset. In his mind, this is what separates him from weak people. He doesn't chase, he doesn't beg, he doesn't get emotional when things go wrong. He's the one who can walk away without looking back. He thinks this makes him powerful, evolved, untouchable. But here's what he doesn't realize. This isn't strength. This is just his way of trying to win a game that doesn't exist. He's turned every relationship into a competition where the person who cares less automatically wins. Where emotional availability equals weakness. Where vulnerability equals losing. You can see this in everything he does. He takes longer to text back than you do, not because he's busy, but because responding quickly feels like losing control. He keeps his emotions guarded while you're open, not because he doesn't feel anything, but because showing feelings feels like surrendering power. He maintains distance while you try to get closer, not because he doesn't want connection, but because being needed feels like winning. He's playing a game where caring less means winning more, where the person who's more invested automatically loses. In his mind, the moment he matches your energy, shows equal interest, or admits he actually needs you, he's lost his advantage. This isn't conscious manipulation, it's deeper than that. He genuinely believes that relationships are about power dynamics, not partnership. He thinks someone has to be the stronger one, and he's determined it's going to be him, so he positions himself as the prize to be won rather than a participant in building something together. This strategy actually works in the short term. It does create attraction, it does make you chase him, it does give him a sense of control, but it's completely unsustainable. You can't build a real relationship on a foundation of imbalance. What happens when you finally match his energy, when you stop chasing, when you find your own power? He panics because his entire relationship strategy depends on you being more invested than he is. The moment that shifts, his whole system falls apart. This need to win becomes his prison. He can't be genuine because genuine feels vulnerable. He can't be consistent because consistency feels like commitment. He can't be fully present because presence feels like surrender. So he stays in this exhausting performance of being the stronger one while secretly craving the very connection he's preventing. Let me paint you a picture of how this plays out in real life. You meet him and he's charming, confident, seems to have his life together. The first few dates are amazing because he's in his element. Casual, no pressure, no expectations. But watch what happens as things progress. The moment you start showing genuine interest, his behavior shifts. You text him something sweet and he responds with something casual. You suggest plans for the weekend and he keeps it vague. You open up about something personal and he changes the subject. Every step you take toward him, he takes a step back. He's constantly recalibrating the balance to make sure he's always caring less than you are. If you pull back, he'll suddenly show more interest, just enough to pull you back in. If you lean in, he'll create distance again. It's like a dance where he's always trying to stay one beat behind you. This shows up in the weirdest ways. He'll remember every little detail about your conversation, but act like he barely pays attention. He'll go out of his way to do something nice for you, then act like it was no big deal. He'll clearly enjoy spending time with you, but always leave you wondering where you stand. The pushing and pulling becomes exhausting. You're constantly trying to figure out if he likes you, if you're moving too fast, if you're being too much. You start editing yourself, holding back your natural responses, trying to match his level of investment, and that's exactly what he wants, you playing his game by his rules. Here's where it gets really destructive. This dynamic trains you to accept breadcrumbs. When someone is consistently giving you less than what you're giving them, you start to feel grateful for the smallest gestures. A quick text becomes exciting. A last-minute invite feels special. Basic relationship behavior starts feeling like grand romantic gestures. Meanwhile, he's getting everything he wants, your attention, your energy, your investment, without having to reciprocate at the same level. He gets to feel desired without being vulnerable. He gets to feel important without making you important to him. But here's what always happens eventually. You either get tired of the imbalance and leave, or you meet his energy and stop chasing. Either way, his strategy backfires. The very thing he thought was protecting him ends up costing him the relationship, and he genuinely doesn't understand why. In his mind, he was doing everything right. He was being strong, independent, not needy, but all he was really doing was ensuring that no one could ever get close enough to love him. The most fascinating part about this weakness is that he's completely blind to it. He literally cannot see how his own behavior is sabotaging his relationships. In his mind, he's the victim of other people's neediness or emotional instability. When relationships end, he tells himself stories that reinforce his beliefs. She was too clingy. She wanted too much too fast. She couldn't handle my independence. He never connects the dots between his emotional distance and the relationship's failure. Instead, he sees the ending as proof that he was right to keep his guard up. This blind spot exists because he's measuring success by the wrong metrics. While you're thinking about connection, compatibility, and building something together, he's thinking about who's winning and losing. While you're focused on how the relationship feels, he's focused on how much control he has. He can't see it coming because he doesn't understand what real intimacy requires. He thinks intimacy is something that just happens naturally when you spend enough time with someone. He doesn't realize that it requires mutual vulnerability, equal investment, and genuine emotional availability. So when relationships fail due to lack of intimacy, he assumes it's because you weren't the right person or because the timing was off. The cycle becomes self-reinforcing. Every failed relationship confirms his belief that caring too much leads to getting hurt. Every time someone leaves because of his emotional unavailability, he sees it as proof that people can't be trusted with his feelings. Every time his distance creates conflict, he views it as evidence that emotions make relationships complicated. He's also getting mixed signals from the world around him. Society often rewards this behavior in men. Being mysterious and hard to get is seen as attractive. Not being too eager is considered good dating advice. So he gets positive reinforcement for the very behavior that's destroying his chances at lasting love. Plus, this strategy does work with certain people, which gives him false confidence. There are people who are drawn to unavailable partners, who thrive on the chase, who mistake his emotional distance for strength. So he gets enough success to believe his approach is correct, not realizing that he's only attracting people who aren't looking for genuine connection either. The saddest part is that deep down, he wants the same things everyone wants, to be loved, accepted, and understood. But he's created a system that makes those things impossible. He's so focused on protecting himself from potential hurt that he's guaranteed himself actual loneliness. And because he can't see his role in creating this pattern, he's doomed to repeat it over and over again. Let's talk about what this weakness actually costs him, because the price is higher than he realizes. On the surface, it might seem like he's winning. He's not getting hurt. He's not being vulnerable. He's maintaining his independence. But look deeper, and you'll see what he's really giving up. First, he's trading temporary comfort for lifelong loneliness. Yes, keeping people at arm's length protects him from immediate pain, but it guarantees him chronic emptiness. He might not experience the sharp sting of heartbreak, but he lives with the constant ache of disconnection. He's choosing the slow burn over the quick flame, not realizing that both end in ashes. He's also missing out on the best parts of being human. Love isn't just about avoiding pain. It's about experiencing joy growth, partnership, and deep connection. By protecting himself from the lows, he's also blocking himself from the highs. He'll never know what it feels like to be truly known by another person, or to have someone who's genuinely excited to build a life with him. Think about the relationships he could have had. The woman who was perfect for him but left because she couldn't handle the uncertainty. The connection that could have turned into a life partnership if he'd just been willing to meet her halfway. The love that could have transformed him if he'd allowed himself to be vulnerable. All lost because he was too busy trying to win a game that nobody else was playing. His weakness also costs him personal growth. Real relationships challenge you, push you to become better, force you to confront your flaws and work on them. By keeping people at a distance, he's robbing himself of the mirrors that relationships provide. He stays stuck in the same patterns, the same limiting beliefs, the same emotional immaturity. There's also a professional and social cost. People who can't form deep personal connections often struggle in other areas too. Leadership requires emotional intelligence. Success often depends on genuine relationships. Trust, collaboration, and influence all require the ability to connect with others on a meaningful level. But perhaps the biggest cost is his sense of self. He's built his entire identity around this false strength, this fake superiority. He doesn't know who he is without the armor. He's so disconnected from his own emotions that he's essentially a stranger to himself. He's trading authenticity for the illusion of control. And here's the cruelest irony. The thing he's most afraid of, being alone and unloved, is exactly what his behavior guarantees. He's creating the very outcome he's trying to avoid. His weakness isn't just sabotaging his relationships, it's sabotaging his entire life. Now that you understand his weakness, what does this mean for you? How do you use this knowledge to protect yourself and maybe even turn the situation in your favor? First, stop taking his behavior personally. When he pulls back, when he's inconsistent, when he keeps you guessing, that's not about you. That's about his need to feel like he's winning. It has nothing to do with your worth, your attractiveness, or your value as a partner. It's just his broken system playing out. Second, recognize the game he's playing so you can choose whether or not to play along. Once you see that he's trying to care less than you do, you can make a conscious decision about how to respond. You can match his energy, you can refuse to chase, or you can walk away entirely. But at least you're making that choice from a place of understanding rather than confusion. Here's where it gets interesting. His weakness actually gives you power if you choose to use it. Remember, his entire strategy depends on you being more invested than he is. The moment you flip that script, his system breaks down. When you stop chasing, when you become less available, when you start dating other people, suddenly he doesn't know how to operate. This doesn't mean playing games or being manipulative. It means having boundaries and self-respect. It means not accepting breadcrumbs when you deserve the whole meal. It means being willing to walk away from someone who isn't willing to match your energy. Watch what happens when you become genuinely less interested. When you stop responding immediately to his texts. When you make plans that don't include him. When you stop being available whenever he decides he wants attention. Suddenly, he's the one who's more invested, and he has no idea how to handle that. But here's the important part. Don't do this to win him back or to manipulate him into committing. Do it because you deserve better than what he's offering. Do it because you're not willing to accept a relationship where you're always giving more than you're getting. The truth is, most avoidant men don't change. Even when you flip the script and gain the upper hand, they usually just find someone else to play their game with. So use this knowledge primarily to protect yourself, not to fix him. If he does happen to wake up and realize what he's losing, great, but don't count on it. Instead, use this understanding to recognize these patterns early and make decisions that serve your own best interests. Because you deserve someone who doesn't see loving you as losing. So there it is, the greatest weakness of an avoidant man. The very thing he thinks makes him powerful is what destroys every meaningful connection he could have. His need to care less, to be less invested, to always maintain the upper hand in relationships. It's not strength, it's self-sabotage. He's so focused on winning a game that doesn't exist that he loses at the game that actually matters, building genuine, lasting love. He's so afraid of being vulnerable that he becomes invulnerable to the very thing he secretly craves most. The saddest part? He usually doesn't figure this out until it's too late, until he's older, lonelier, and watching everyone around him build the meaningful relationships that he convinced himself he didn't need. But now you know. You understand the game he's playing and why he's playing it. You can see his weakness for what it is, not strength, but fear dressed up as power. And armed with this knowledge, you can make better choices for yourself. Remember, you can't fix someone who doesn't see that they're broken. You can't love someone into emotional availability. You can't win a game where the rules are designed to keep you losing. What you can do is recognize the pattern, protect your own heart, and refuse to accept less than what you deserve, because life is too short to waste it on someone who thinks loving you less makes them more powerful. You deserve someone who sees loving you as winning, not losing. Starts to care about someone. He panics. He doesn't know what to do with those feelings, so he runs, he ghosts, he creates distance, not because he's strong, but because he's terrified and has no emotional tools to deal with it. This is why he can seem so confident and put together on the surface, but the moment real intimacy is required, he crumbles. He literally doesn't know how to be in a real relationship because he spent his whole life avoiding the very skills that make relationships work. The irony. He's so focused on protecting himself from getting hurt that he guarantees he'll end up alone. He's so afraid of being vulnerable that he never experiences genuine connection. He's so convinced that needing people is weakness that he never learns how. Thank you for watching this all the way through. I know this wasn't easy to hear, but now you have the knowledge to make better choices for yourself. If this helped you, please like and share it with someone who needs to see this. Subscribe for more content about relationship dynamics and protecting your peace. You deserve someone who sees loving you as winning, not losing. I'll see you next time.